Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Climate Services Seminar Series. Today, we're really pleased to have Tami Houston from the National Centers for Environmental Information. And her topic today is going to be the value of environmental information from NOAA's NCEI. So just a little bit about Tami. Tami is the National Partnership Liaison for the Regional Climate Services Program at NOAA's NCEI. In this role, she serves as the technical lead for 6 NOAA Regional Climate Center contracts and as an ex-officio member of the American Association of State Climatologists Executive Committee. Tami is a member of NCEI's Climatic Information Services branch and serves on NCEI's engagement team, engaging with public, private, and academic users from a variety of regions and climate-sensitive sectors in order to identify user needs and enhance their climate literacy. Tami holds her Master of Science degree in Geography with an emphasis in Applied Climatology and a Bachelor of Science degree in Meteorology, both from Northern Illinois University. So we're very happy to have Tami with us today. Just a note on how we'll proceed kind of logistically. So Tami will go through her presentation and we'll save questions for the end. You can use the questions feature in the GoToWebinar. You can also raise your hand toward the end and we'll try to unmute you and allow you to ask your question. It looks like we're going to have on the order of about 20 folks on the call live. Of course, we are recording this, and we will hopefully be able to make it available, at least internally, to our staff here for your colleagues who couldn't attend today due to other obligations. Okay, so with that, again, we're very pleased to have Tami Houston from NCEI, and I will turn it on over to Tami. Welcome, Tami.
Well, thank you, Steve, for that introduction, and thanks to Marina and Jenna for inviting me to join you today to share some examples from our user community of the value of NOAA and NCEI weather and climate data to their decision making. So, as you all know, NCEI archives data from the ocean floor to the surface of the sun, and our users see us as a trusted and reliable source for this information because it has real-world relevance to their decision-making, and not just to them, but to millions of customers across the US and across the globe. And we do that by blending the science and data as well as our expertise into this information for their decision making. And as you know, with the consolidation of the data centers into NCEI several years ago, we don't just have the weather and climate information, but we also have coastal, oceanic, and geophysical data. So as we begin discussing about our users, how do we know who our users are? Well, NCEI has long collected analytics about our users, including the typical who, what, when, and where, primarily from our call center data requests that are received. But a few years ago, NCEI started using a CRM tool, or a customer relationship management tool, to collect user engagement information across the whole center and not just from the requests received in our call center. So that included when scientists went to conferences, when we held engagements, attended other meetings and conferences ourselves, and other people throughout the center engaging with users. So the next couple slides, I'm going to highlight some of the analytics that we get from the CRM tool. So this first slide is focusing on who our users are. So in FY22, NCEI collected a total of over 8,000 user contacts who called into the center and who we engaged with that needed weather and climate information. So the list on the right there is based off of the US Census NAICS codes, or the North American Industry Classification System. And every industry is assigned a NAICS code, and it's a 6-digit code with the first 2 digits highlighting top level sectors or industries that they are a part of, with the remaining 4 digits highlighting subsectors within those higher levels. So you can see from this slide that from the over 8,000 users that we engaged with, Our top 3 sectors include professional and scientific and technical services, which equaled about 38.5% of our users in FY22. Our second largest sector was other services, except public administration. And so that particular classification includes primarily private households. Our third largest user group was public administration, the yellow there representing almost 12% of our user connections, and that's the local, state, and national governments. And then the next largest was at 11.4% was educational services. So those are a lot of our university partners that we engage with. The list on the right, like I said, highlights the top 20 or the 20 high-level sectors from NAICS. We added a couple for our own purposes because while this NAICS codes are primarily from a US or a North American industry standard, we do have a lot of foreign users that call in and that we engage with. And then there's just some users we just don't know what their classification is. So there's 2 classifications that we added. And you can see there too where foreign users are about 8% of who we engage with. In FY22, we actually did serve all 20 of these high-level sectors. And on average, from month to month, we average about 18 of these sectors that we engage with. So that's who our users are. Well, out of those users, this is what they were calling and engaging and wanting to help make their decisions. So the top ones being primarily our daily and hourly data sets, including the local climatological data. That's a mix of the 2. So LCDs are our most popular at almost 25%. 13% of users requested GHC and daily data, which includes co-op and COCO-RAWs and several other daily data sets into GHCN. And then our third largest at 3.8% was ISD, or our integrated surface data, which is our hourly data sets. So we have documented not just who our users are, what data sets they're collecting from an analytical standpoint, but we also have had dialogues with our users to try to again, understand also why they're requesting the information and how it makes an impact on them. And so a few years ago, we worked with Acclimatize, which is a climate change adaptation and risk management company, to develop a set of case studies of how users are utilizing NCEI data and products to make decisions. And so these next few slides are just some examples that I'm going to share with you. So the first couple I'm going to highlight are with the agricultural community. This first one is looking at U.S. corn growers, because farmers utilize climatological data such as GHCN to minimize waste when applying fertilizers. So if they aren't applying as much fertilizers, then that also maximizes their profit. And so if nitrogen management tools are used across the U.S. cornfields, the industry could save approximately $4 billion per year by matching the application of nitrogen with need, as well as savings that is not used as part of the runoff cleanup. And another agricultural example is the use of the U.S. Drought Monitor in the livestock and ranching industry. Cow and calf operators, land leasers, and feed suppliers use USDM summaries to manage impacts on their herds, grazing, and feed. And in 2015 to 16 alone, USDA aid to producers for drought losses totaled over $3 billion in this aid. So looking at a couple of insurance examples, a Texas insurer used NexRad in 2016 to review an unusually high number of roof claims after hail events. They were finding that even following minor events, public adjusters would go door to door and advise homeowners to repair their roofs and file claims, whether or not their roofs were damaged. And so by using NextRad data, these insurers were able to verify whether or not a hail event actually occurred or not, so that it reduced fraud, but it also reduces the need for adjusters to actually go to various locations to identify whether an event even caused damage. And this applies both to personal property as well as for crop losses. And another example is with the reinsurance industry. You may recall in 2015, Massachusetts experienced a record cold winter and Boston accumulated record-breaking snow. Well, Guy Carpenter, which is a global insurance company, used snow data to understand frequency and severity of snowpack formation throughout Boston. And so this helps them understand how frequently this may occur, and it also, applies to the millions of dollars in policy coverages across an area. So looking at a utility company example, in 2017, dry conditions and Santa Ana winds damaged distribution systems and fueled 2 massive fires, resulting in 2 deaths, damages to more than 1,000 homes and businesses, and burned about 13% of San Diego Gas and Electric Company's service territory. San Diego Gas and Electric was actually found liable and had to pay $2 billion in settlement cases. By using historical weather and climate data, they have created an early warning and operational maintenance system. And so hopefully this will save them that $2,000 billion in savings from similar events in the future. Looking at a transportation and trucking firm example, in cold conditions, trucks need more time to warm up, and they idle their trucks in order to stay warm. Believe it or not, 1 hour of idle time actually consumes about a gallon of diesel fuel. So using idle reduction technologies could actually reduce their fuel usage by 1 billion gallons of diesel fuel annually, resulting in a savings of about $3 billion per year. And given the way prices are these days, it may even be more than that now. So looking at the last example that I'm going to share from the Acclimatize reports is looking at a retail and manufacturing example. So businesses and investors use data to capitalize on as well as mitigate sales impacts from weather and climate events. So examples of this include when stores place umbrellas in front of a store during a rain event, or even when stocking an inventory of shovels and generators ahead of big snow events. So using tools like the Regional Snowfall Index or the State of the Climate reports can help stores optimize their product placement, as well as gives them an opportunity to also examine their energy demand at their stores during these kind of events. So to highlight a few other examples, and more recently, NCEI partnered with AASC and several state climate offices to get some of examples of how state climate offices use NCEI's weather and climate information, along with possibly information from the regional climate centers and their state mesonets to help users make decisions in their state. So this one is a highlight from 2021 that we heard from the Alabama State Climate Office. They used, the State Climate Office revitalized high yield, high margin crops such as corn and cotton they noticed that were in long-term decline due to apparent drought vulnerability. They are now viable with some government investments from the state level and irrigation incentives. And this helped revolutionize the state's crop and irrigation strategy, doubling their output. So with the state investing almost $2 million, they have seen approximately 5 times that in return to their state revenues alone. And that's from using a wide variety of NCEI data and products. And so now from that study, they've seen that Alabama cotton is now competitive along with California. In another example from South Carolina, the State Climate Office in South Carolina works a lot with emergency managers in their state, especially when they're developing their state and local hazard mitigation plans. So a lot of the emergency managers dealing with weather and climate information is often outside of their comfort zone. And one of their primary functions is to consider the risks that face their communities and to help mitigate those losses. So the South Carolina State Climate Office used NCEI data such as COOP, the Storm Events Database, Climate at a Glance, and normals to develop products and projects to serve emergency management needs for a wide variety of hazards such as drought, tropical storms, winter weather, and other extremes. So the State Climate Office has also developed these climatologies and event analogs for these hazard mitigation plans as well as other uses. This year we partnered with the Washington State Climate Office, and they looked at the example of how they engage with a variety of users on their Washington State drought coordination plans. So they used NCEI and RCC products such as Climate at a Glance and the Drought Termination and Amelioration Tool for presentations that they held with their state water supply availability committee, their emergency water executive committee, and the state legislature, all who make drought decisions in the state. And on the right is just an example of how Washington State defines drought and the impact that it has to also have on people, fish, and farms. We also collaborated this year with New Jersey to kind of document how they use NCEI, National Weather Service, RCCs in their own state mesonets to develop tools as they engage with various environmental entities and others in their state. They used information such as GHC&D, Climate at a Glance, normals, storm data, and their mesonet to evaluate extreme precipitation events, drought, soil conditions, wildfire weather danger, dam safety, water resources, and climate variability and change. And they indicated, as well as a lot of the other state climate offices who are not necessarily doing deep dives like what some of the Climatology study looked at, that the use of this data, the tools, and the products are indispensable towards these efforts. It's often hard to actually put a monetary value on what some of this data is to the decision-making process. So in addition to the analytics collected from data requests and our engagements, as well as the development of these case studies, we continue to engage with users at meetings, conferences, and by hosting targeted user workshops and listening sessions. And so from October 21st, March of 2021 to March, NOAA and the Department of Commerce held 5 listening sessions with the retail, insurance and reinsurance, architecture and engineering, the new blue economy, and travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation sectors. And the overarching goals for this series and for each of the sectors that we engaged with was to capture input from stakeholders to inform our continued improvement of NOAA climate services. It was also to increase their awareness and appreciation of NOAA's roles in addressing climate-related challenges and opportunities. And then finally, to also increase our own understanding of the sector's high priority needs, gaps, and opportunities for innovation, even if it's not necessarily actionable by just NOAA. So some of the listening session takeaways that we heard from these users were to, 1, assemble the most relevant data for the sector, meaning don't make me go on a scavenger hunt to all of the different NOAA websites to find this information. Don't make me be the professional also to use this information, make it user-friendly. They also wanted to see some event catalogs and case studies. So make this data available related to specific events so that they can then examine their own data and practices from when they experienced those events in the past so that they can be more prepared when those similar events happen in the future. Make forward-looking model output have similar ease of use as the retrospective data. Again, don't make me be, that professional. And then, so that tends to be a little bit more for the more novice users, but also for the expert users, leverage the cloud and analysis ready concepts. So in other words, they know what they're doing, but just put the data out there so that they can also use it and apply it to some of their data and models as well. So our value overall, every day NOAA's data is added to the quality of life of many people and communities. And I just mentioned just a few examples. From TV weather forecasts to smartphone apps, these data provide a backbone for our lives, both from a safety, security, and many other conveniences that are built on this information that we collect and provide. So with that, here is a link to our impact page at NCEI. There you can find these examples and other acclimatized studies. The studies from AASC and the listening session reports, we are still working to get those posted, so you will see those available soon. But again, the acclimatized studies can be found here at this website. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at my email listed here, or I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
All right, thank you, Tami. So we certainly have plenty of time for Q&A. So I do have one question that came in that's queued up that I can ask. I can also invite folks to raise their hands if they want to unmute themselves and they kind of ask live here, or you can certainly just drop your question into the box. Okay. All right. So Tami, the first question comes from Andrea Bear in Western Region. And she's asking, does NCEI employ economists? And if not, is there some consultation with economists?
Thanks for that question, Andrea. And that's a really good question. And it's one that actually we do not. We do have some staff that has a little bit of that expertise, especially tied around the $1 billion disaster report. But in general, we do not have any other staff members that really look at it from that perspective. But I think, more and more, especially as we talk about the value of our data and trying to, document that is something that we know would be a benefit.
Okay, let's see. I don't see any other questions right now. Thank you, Andrea, for that question. All right, so are there any other questions from our folks on the line? Okay. All right, so nothing else has come in. Thank you, Tami, for your time. After we stop the webinar, this will be converted to a video recording, and we'll post it. And that'll be shared with our Climate Services listserv, and you can share this with colleagues who weren't able to watch it today. Okay, so with that, I think we'll end it there. No more questions have come in, and enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good Veterans Day holiday this Friday. And next month, we have our Climate Services seminar series on December 19th. If you put that on your calendars, and that'll be John Nielsen Gammon. And he'll be presenting on Southern Regional Climate Center updates. So something to look forward to for next month, December 19th, right before the Christmas and New Year holiday season. So hope to see you then as well. Okay, so with that, we'll wrap up. Have a great rest of the week. And thanks again for your attendance. And thanks again, Tami, for your great talk.
Thanks, everyone.